we should start off with the FBI. For those of you who don't know, if you were under a rock or something, I don't know, Charlie Kirk, at the age of 31, the founder of Turning Point USA, a right-wing organization that is funded by right-wing institutional donors, who goes around college campuses and was credited by Donald Trump with like securing the Gen Z vote for Donald Trump. He was shot. He was shot in the neck at UVU in Utah, and he, shortly after being shot in the neck, died. Okay, and he was at an event. He died. There was another person that caused some instability at the event. Law enforcement hyper-focused on that guy. Meanwhile, the actual shooter, who was potentially above a rooftop 200 yards away, was able to get away, okay? They were able to get away. They shot and killed Charlie Kirk, and they were able to get away. And in the aftermath of that, they found out that the one guy that was in the crowd was actually just like a known person who just like was experiencing a mental health episode. So instead of releasing him, they basically kept him in prison for obstruction of justice, which is crazy, but they basically cleared him of the not being the shooter. And then they apprehended another suspect who I believe was a dude with an Arab name, but it turns out he was a Heritage Foundation guy who was just, it feels like they just only apprehended him because he is a dude with an Arab name, I guess. But he's like very clearly, he's a Heritage Foundation guy. He's a Trump supporter. He was there, to watch Charlie Kirk. So they released him as well. They cleared him as well. And now they have officially found and released images of a person of interest in the Charlie Kirk killing. Now, this is a person of interest, so we don't even know if this is actually the person, but like this is the closest we've arrived at whether or not this is the person. Now, one thing that I do want to mention here, however, is that outside of this person of interest, there was another revelation that came out, which I think is perhaps one of the most insane things I've seen with mainstream media in general. Steven Crowder this morning released an exclusive. This morning, my team received an email from an officer at the ATF. The email included a screenshot from what appears to be an internal message describing a weapon and cartridges located by an ATF and other law enforcement near the scene of the Charlie Kirk shooting at Utah Valley State University. And what's crazy about it isn't the fact that Steven Crowder actually released this information, right? Because that's the expectation. He's a Rumble guy. Of course, he's going to like go with unverified, unconfirmed reports and really feed into the narrative that like the shooter was probably trans, right? What's actually completely unacceptable is the fact that Wall Street Journal also ran along with this report. And the report is filled to the brim with spectacular misinformation. Like, they were saying that the bullets were engraved with anti-fascist and pro-trans messaging. Like, how are you engraving the bullets? Like, what the does that even mean? But this kind of misinformation goes crazy. Kirk was shot and killed at Utah Valley University at Orem, Utah. Mr. Kirk was speaking at the university as a part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple SLC 1 and 3 agents responded immediately. The suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in the adjacent building on the campus, and surveillance video shows the suspect jumping off and fleeing in the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement located an older imported Mauser 30 .06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to the 3 unspent rounds at the top-fed magazine. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted, and ATF SLC working leads generated by the trace. Now, I want you to understand something. Okay? Like, do I think this is a deliberate piece of misinformation? Or do I think this was a misunderstanding that obviously got elevated by a charlatan such as Steven Crowder? The point is, it doesn't matter, okay? The New York Times assessment on this was a lot more sober than mine, but they basically said, and I'm going to pull that up real quickly, because this is a spectacular up. The New York Times had a follow-up on this and basically said that this report, according to a preliminary internal report circulated inside the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, federal and local officials recovered ammunition with a rifle that appeared to be engraved with statements expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. But a senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that report had not been verified by the ATF analysts, did not match other summaries of the evidence, and might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. In fast-moving investigations, such status reports are not made public because they often contain a mixture of accurate and inaccurate information. Now, I don't know if this is the case. I also personally don't even understand how transgender ideology could even be engraved on a bullet. But revealing this information on an unsubstantiated internal report is not doing journalism. It's actually doing the opposite of journalism. Unless you actually see what they were talking about and engage with follow-ups and get the verified analysis, this is unimaginably, this is the type of shit you expect from Steven Crowder. It's not the type of shit you expect from CNN, okay? Which CNN also did. But they said cultural phrases, which a lot of people are mad about as well, because they think that CNN is hiding the truth. A range of phrases related to cultural issues were found scrawled on the rifle and ammunition found in the woods near the conservative activist Charlie Kirk was murdered on Wednesday, according to sources with knowledge of the investigation. Authorities are analyzing those messages as they seek to identify a suspect in the killing, sources said. But it's not yet clear if they point to a motivation in the attack. I don't know if the media environment is responding to the utter panic that they experience from independent resources being first to market, okay? And they just, in an effort to get ahead of other people flanking them out, or other people like leaking certain stories, they just don't do their due diligence and they don't think about how they are supposed to respond in this situation. Right now, there is an FBI assessment of who the suspect might be, the person of interest might be. However, this is a fast-paced, fast-moving media environment and media landscape. And while I'm going to show you this, before we even develop any sort of inferences about who the shooter's profile or background might be, it turns out that the FBI has also said that the third suspect now, the third person of interest, is probably not the right guy either. Former FBI Assistant Chris Swecker warns Bureau's very inconsistent description of the person of interest versus the photo they released. There is one thing I think is very inconsistent and it bothers me. Okay, so it could be the guy, it could not be the guy, it may as well not be the guy as well. It's just, I guess it turns out when you have podcasters who have made a living off of hawking supplements and engaging in conspiracy theories lead the federal law enforcement, the premier federal law enforcement agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, it doesn't help. It only seemingly hurts the way that the Bureau operates. Who could have thought that would be the case? It turns out, as much as I shit on liberals for their endless posturing about the infallibility of institutions, they're kind of right on this, where they're like, hey, you know, ideologically, you might want a guy who is like maybe aligned to your interest. That's fine. But like, it should still be a competent person, right? Like, because liberals, they will always look for a guy who's like a Republican to put into a position like this, because they think that this will somehow soothe the interests of the cackling hyenas on the right. Like, they'll just stop and be like, well, Jim Comey was a registered Republican his whole life, so I guess this is, the DOJ is truly and the FBI is truly apolitical or whatever. No, that doesn't work that way. But at least those guys are competent, you know? At least those guys were competent. You need to have competent people in positions of power. I'm sorry. You know? And if you don't, this kind of shit happens, it seems. That's why I didn't have a lot of issues with, like, Pete Hegseth being in charge of the Department of War now, formerly known as the Department of Defense, because it's like the output is already very violent. But it seems they're also doing a horrible job with that stuff, too. They're just become even more violent than they were before.
Good evening. In the last hour, the FBI has released images of a person of interest in the shooting of Charlie Kirk in Utah. 2 pictures have been released. The FBI says a suspect, a person of college age, is still on the run and that they found a high-powered rifle. Mr. Kirk, a right-wing influencer, was shot and killed while speaking at a rally at Utah Valley University last night.
We will not stand for what happened yesterday. We are exhausting every lead. We have every officer invested in this, every investigator, every local agency. The outpouring of support from the law enforcement community has been astounding. We are investing everything we have into this, and we will catch this individual. Having walked through the crime scene, through the hallways of this school, through the classrooms, I can't imagine what the people on scene felt as well. A horrific event where some of them barricaded in classrooms, some of them ran in fear. Can't overstate the tragedy and the horrific event that yesterday was, and how we will work to bring to justice the actions of one individual or any other individuals that assisted in that. Our state has gone through a lot, and we will come out successful.
This morning I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis. Now, I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. I assure you that all leads, tips are being fully investigated. As of this morning, we have received more than 130 tips. We thank the community for that. The FBI has brought every resource to bear, and we will continue to do so throughout the course of this investigation.
Well, our US correspondent James Matthews has the latest now from Utah.
Almost sounded like an open and shut investigation when the FBI held that 7:30 a.m. news conference this morning. They said they were confident, and there was a confidence in withholding these kind of images. You know, there was no immediate call to the public for help in identifying who he was. So, yeah, I do wonder.
My Walmart's flag is at half-mast today. That's crazy. I mean, look. Tragedy aside, if you're like a black person, if you have loved ones who are undocumented, if you're a brown person, if you are a trans person, or you know trans people, like, oh, because it's 9/11. Oh, Jesus. That's why, right? Okay, I was ready to pop off. But Trump is no. Hold on though. Hold on, because this is still a larger a larger thing, because the president ordered flags to be at half-mast, not because of 9/11, but because of Charlie Kirk. I can't believe we forgot. No, I just Trump ordered it until Sunday, and it was openly not about 9/11 at all. He said it was for Charlie Kirk. He extended it for Charlie Kirk. And no, I didn't forget that it's 9/11 today. I already started the conversation, today by addressing it. Anyway, my point is, if you're any of these marginalized groups that have been actively dehumanized by Charlie Kirk, or the right wing broadly, and you see a lot of institutional liberals currently talking about lowering the temperature aside, just genuinely talking about the background of Charlie Kirk and who he was and what he meant to so many Americans, all this stuff. You got to feel a little worried, right? You got to feel a little worried that there are just these people just don't give a shit about you at all. Because my expectation isn't for Ezra Klein to come out and be like, R.I.P. Bozo, smoking on that Charlie Kirk pack or some shit, right? That's not my expectation at all. That would be insane, right? And of course, if you're in a position of prominence, you shouldn't do that anyway, right? Because you do have some influence. But the point I'm making is that when you go above and beyond to almost whitewash their perspective and their political output, when this is a political operative, you kind of come across as you're either signing off on their worldview, right? Or you just don't care, right? You either are saying, I like what he was doing, I like what his worldview looks like, or I don't care enough about the dehumanization that he partook in, right? This has got to be, this has got to be a weird moment for a lot of people. I'm in this. I'm too close to the situation for me to look at it as anything but there has definitely been a, when I saw the eulogies coming from CNN and Fox News and how close they were in the language and the verbiage used, it kind of frustrated me a little bit. You're supposed to be clear. You're supposed to be honest. There's no reason to be dishonest. And I even tweeted about this earlier as well, and people were obviously screaming bloody murder in my replies in the aftermath of this. But like, I tweeted two things. I said, shameful from the New York Times obit of Charlie Kirk, says Julia Steinberg. Mr. Kirk was so vocal in his willingness to spread unsupported claims and outright lies. He said that drug hydroxychloroquine was 100% effective in treating the virus, which is not. That Twitter temporarily barred him in early March 2020, but the move only added to his notoriety and seemed to support his claim that he was muzzled by a liberal elite. Now, what's interesting about this is like that's the least offensive thing Charlie Kirk had said, right? Like in terms of distasteful things, in terms of like objectively violent statements and dehumanizing rhetoric, like that's the least offensive thing, right? And I said, this is all but a fraction of Charlie Kirk's honest perspective. He was quite proud of his positions. He defended them vociferously. Not sure why you'd find them distasteful to mention. Can't you paint any person in a bad light? You absolutely can. You absolutely can. But my expectation in this moment is for people to be sober in their analysis and be honest in their analysis, right? Like my expectation is not for the New York Times to be like, he deserved it or whatever. Obviously, I don't believe that either. But my expectation is for them to, at the very least, reflect a little bit about his positions, because this is the moment where you are introducing Charlie Kirk to a much broader audience. Like, reflect on his real legacy. Matt Walsh said some stuff as well. He said, all Charlie Kirk ever did was have conversations with people. He didn't insult anyone. He made arguments. He debated. He wasn't an extremist in any way. Everyone who knew Charlie personally loved him. That's the kind of guy he was. They still killed him. I'm furious and heartbroken in equal measure. I cannot put into words how I feel. Maybe that is for the best. To which I responded with, Charlie Kirk opposed the Civil Rights Act, called George Floyd a scumbag, said he'd be worried about black pilots, and that he forced his daughter to carry a pregnancy to term if she was. He shouldn't have been killed, but he was definitely an extremist. Like, the problem is, Matt Walsh doesn't think Charlie Kirk's an extremist. And the problem is, most Republicans don't think these positions are extreme positions. Okay? So in a moment like this, when tensions are very high, for mainstream institutions to also launder his reputation or his output and rewrite his legacy after years and years of reflecting on it, after years and years of honest coverage about what he had said, down to the wire, down to the very last moment, I think is disappointing. This is crazy. You think this? You think it's crazy that I think that someone saying that their daughter, if they were in a hypothetical, that you would force them to carry a pregnancy to term is not an extreme position? Go ahead. Have that argument with anyone around the country. There are a lot less people who would agree with that position than there are people who would be repulsed by said position. He has a 10-year-old daughter. Yeah. I can't link Osita Nwanevu's blue sky take for you, but he said, and he is totally correct, and that's what my frustrations are a little bit as well. My sense is that most Americans had not heard of Charlie Kirk until yesterday. The first and perhaps only thing they're going to hear about him from the most trusted and important voices in American politics is that he was a model and constructive participant in good faith political discourse. That's crazy, because when you stake your reputation on a statement such as that one, you're signing off on all of this. You're signing off on all of this, and you're turning around and you're saying to the people that are listening to you that those are a part of the honest political discourse.